3 different shots from 3 different games. And for me, these images showcase 3 very specific things that Arsenal are doing differently this season when either chasing the game or looking to break a game open. The Sunderland, Burnley, Atletico Madrid, West Ham and Newcastle games spring to mind, not just from how we found positive results from adversity, but from how we were able to do that. Welcome back to the Harvey Gratian YouTube channel. I'm so glad you found us or are joining us once again. And a few weeks ago, I said forget about the open play, XG and goals. Instead, I asked, does it feel like Arsenal are more threatening, more inevitable, dare I say, in open play? My answer then was yes, and now the numbers are beginning to follow suit. I want to split this video into 3 key ways Arsenal are making stubborn defences a little less stubborn this campaign. But as you'll see, these 3 will often just merge into one another. The first is Martin Zubimendi. Yes, this meme becomes more and more appropriate with every passing day, but more specifically, why Zubimendi plays so high and his ability to join our attacks at the right moment. Next, I want to explain the new role arrivals are playing for us, why they are so important in moving a defence around and giving our attack a balance. And lastly, why Arsenal, when the time is right, are massing in the box or swarming in the box like never before, and how that can potentially tip chaos in our favour. Against settled blocks, these are the dynamics we've often lent on. I'll be using on-pitch examples, so don't worry too much about these shots, but pay attention to when Rice and Zubimendi change their angles and heights, how the fullbacks, to use an example, are allowed to arrive into different spaces, our potential overload between the lines against back fives if one of their wide centre-backs are hesitant to jump. But let's get into the match footage now, and let's move on to Martin Zubimendi, a player who has the ability to organise our build-up without touching the ball, a phrase I love and I use now constantly, someone who calculates when and where we take our risks on the pitch, and has also now become almost a kind of game changer for us in the final third. And earlier this season, I said this. I came into this season believing that these kind of opportunistic runs, where he spies a pocket and gets a shot off, would be Zubimendi's best chance of goals. I did not have thumping volleys and backstick leaps on the cards. But should this be a surprise? If Zubimendi can add more of these hits or those killer whips we saw him assist Gyokeres with in pre-season, if he adds these to the clips, the disguise, the ambition he already shows around the box, then the 50 million he's already made look pretty humble becomes a snip. I had high hopes for Zubimendi, but his impact and his wackiness in these areas has flourished way more than I expected, or way earlier than I expected. Lots of our changes this season are to do with intent as much as anything else for me, and as Trossard gets chopped down here, play hesitates and we want to use the ball quickly. Rice has moved into right centre-back in this kind of base of 4 that we form against deep defences, and shows that urgency by wrapping one into Zubimendi, now on the last line, who has darted into that central stack that we create. It's a tame shot, granted, but the baiting of Siddiqui down the line before swivelling inside is really clever, and that's just a little snippet of what he can give us in these spots. At the beginning, I said my points are often going to overlap with each other, and this is another one of Zubimendi's sort of chancier ways to arrive in the final third. You see how we are kind of squeezing Sunderland so much here, with Rice splitting the centre-backs and both full-backs ahead in these kind of half and half roles, not sitting static in these spaces, but ready to surge into them. Calafiori does just that. Eze offers short, and you'll see these 3 Sunderland defenders are only really concerned with Merino. So Zubimendi says, why not? And makes this diagonal run. And how often have I stressed the importance of playing at these diagonals for unpredictability? And Trossard picks him out, and the ball trickles just wide. On a side note, Trossard's passing is kind of like a bit of an acquired taste. You need time in order to get it. He's forceful, which is a good thing for us, even if he's overly forceful at times. You don't want him trying too many weird things too deep in build-up, but he's absolutely nailed a few types of passes, and that whip over the shoulder of a fullback to someone arriving through the half space is one of them. But back to Zubimendi, because this is where he's more consistently impactful, and I'm going to call it joining play at the right moment. Calafiori tucks in so Zubimendi can drift ahead, and from this point on, as Timber finds Saka and speeds up on the outside, Zubimendi's timing means Timber never has to break stride. Zubimendi rebounds Saka's inside ball, first time to Timber, and you can see how much harder it is for Lefay to track Timber, where there are firstly kind of multiple movements to contend with at the same time, but when Timber already has this momentum. We know Eze is deliberately playing narrower at the moment, keeping Gertruda tight and helping widen the space for Zubimendi's pass too. These spaces off the shoulder of a mid to low block are the most dangerous areas to access, in my opinion, but they require these often perfectly weighted first time passes in order to do that. Zubimendi can do this with either foot, which is so underrated, and he can play a scoop pass or he can play a slip ball. Here you can see how the words that I used at the start, arrivals and massing in the box, are starting to come into play because Calafiori springs into life and he keeps offering himself different lanes and different angles. We're holding lots of interest too inside the box, and Zubimendi joins at the perfect time. First time to lay off to Saka, who has drifted to the left into this inside channel our constant movements have opened up. Also, what's the risk here? Losing a ball in an awkward place for Sunderland to break from when they've got already 10 men behind the ball? I think from all of this, just allow Zubimendi to pick our moments to make these risky choices, because oftentimes they're not as risky as maybe we've previously thought. Let's expand on this idea of arriving for the whole team now. This is significant because arriving makes it hard for a defence to settle as we move them around in different ways, and why these ways of stretching a backline give our attack so much balance for me. We find our base with Timber waiting in that half and half role, but crucially as Rice gives and goes with Trossard, who at the moment feels really crucial for our side for balance in its current dynamics, not just those really clutch moments. Rice would not be able to arrive threateningly if Calafiori was static. Obviously, Calafiori is not, and he pulls Mukiele at a diagonal and opens the room for Rice to get driving himself. Something I want to see more of from Declan Rice is this running directly at blocks. Trossard's now dashing inside too, meaning as Rice lays it off to, surprise surprise, Zubimendi, it's a simple quick release into Merino, who's balancing these movements by dropping himself. As Sunderland have to react and now collapse the distance, Calafiori is darting in behind. It's a heavy pass from Merino and we're forced wide as a result. Trossard slips in Calafiori again though, and the volume, as I've always said, of off-ball movements Calafiori makes is astounding. But we end up losing the ball. Or do we? Because I've said it enough times now for you to join in with me. Ball losses can be productive, especially if you're Arsenal. Our counter-press here pins Xhaka, and we turn it over. Rice looks to get a quick shot off from the position he's been swinging in more and more deliveries from, which is another massive positive, but look at where that man Zubimendi is. He times his arrival perfectly, and the ball actually drops to Eze's feet, something that isn't happening just by chance. It's a shot on target, but there's that sense that we're beginning to attack against defences in these waves now. And these arrivals feel at the centre of that. Calafiori, that disruptor of organisation that Arteta speaks about, never stays static, and it's unsurprising that when he has been more fixed in place, like his left centre-back role in possession against Crystal Palace, we looked as a team more unstuck. Look at how Calafiori here leaves that same kind of vertical line to open up Trossard's pass into Timber, who's moving the other way and balancing him out. Here, Calafiori's overloading on the right hand side, then arriving on the left to link, overlap and go hunting in the box. Of course, it's Trossard who balances all this roaming and off-ball movement with a really incisive pass. Because balance is so important to stop this straight ball from Rice into Saka, making everything a bit ball to feet and cramped. You need Gyokeres occupying, Timber pulling the line deeper, Zubimendi joining in and getting us running at a block from within. After these kind of previously settled pictures, we're turning these settled pictures and stubborn defences into something and into situations where we're running at them from the inside. So, now to the final point, to massing. In particular, Arsenal swarming the middle of the pitch and swarming the box. And as I've said all season, this isn't some massive kind of swerve in Arteta's game plan. It's more about just picking the right moments. But when we do pick these moments, as I'm going to show now, everyone gets involved. For me, this is our best sequence in terms of on-the-ball stuff in the season so far. But look how it begins pretty typically. Rice drives us forward and finds Saka out wide before continuing his run into the box. But when Timber gets it, things collapse. He claims the space, importantly, before it shuts. Eze then eliminates Bruno Guimaraes and panics Tonali into jumping out and into overcompensating. Eze then finds Trossard, who bounces it to Zubimendi. But let's stop it here. Look at how clustered everything has got. When we accelerate play now, we're choosing to collapse it too. It's Zubimendi's clip and it's Timber's header, but with the amount of players we have flooding the box, it's no surprise that Eze and Calafiori are taking so many shots, and it's no surprise that this one here lands at Zubimendi's feet and he smashes the bar. The rest defence is still set, and you could argue that our attackers, being sort of in this swarming central position and clustering in the box, are in an even better place to counterpress. In theory, when you create a stretched backline initially, or if you begin without those players occupying these highest and widest spots, you can still have the ability to arrive in these zones. And from there, as we tilt and angle towards the goal, our great players are close to one another to produce and come up with some magic moments. But there's also the proximity to pick up second helpings and attack again in those waves. But timing is everything. If you risk speeding things up when you're not as prepared, that's when you can be stunned by Erling Haaland. Are we complete? Probably not. I'd still like to see some more dribbles in the team. That might require some more Waneri minutes or more Eze minutes from off the left-hand side. I think we are all, as a collective, as a fan base, still underrating how valuable a fully fit Ben White can still be, and not every Arteta game plan has been successful. But as we did see against Crystal Palace, that's where set piece help. And it's where set pieces become not just a kind of crutch to lean on, but just an incredible weapon to break these games open. And we needed Eze to stick away another one of those bouncing balls from swarming in the centre to win us the game. And there are still a lot of players to come back, and that's so exciting. But it does present questions of its own. But for now, thank you so much for watching. As we go into the international break, Arsenal sit joint top of the Champions League table and, maybe more importantly, top of the Premier League by 4 points. Let's reset and let's go again. But thank you so much once more. I will see you very shortly. See you later.